Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Circuit Paul Ricard here in Le Castellet in the south of France for round 5 of the Ferrari Challenge. Trofeo Pirelli and Coppa Shell here. 2024 season continues, and this is where we are then. Really rather beautiful location for a racing circuit. And we reach the second half of our Ferrari Challenge Season 4 2024, having been to Mugello, to Balaton, to Jerez, to Portimao. Here we are in Le Castellet, and we'll be heading off to Nürburgring in Germany ahead of the final to come at Imola. So, this circuit, Paul Ricard then, it's quite a test for our drivers. 5.842 kilometers, 15 turns, 6 of them are left-handers. 9 of them are right-handers. It was built in 1969. First race took place here in 1970, and it is around 50 kilometers or so from Marseille. And weather conditions are truly beautiful here this afternoon. Track temperature is 51 degrees. Air temperature 31 degrees, and there's, as you can see, the flag flying, indicative of 5 kilometers per hour of wind. Just to take a little bit of the edge off of the temperature that we have here. And there is the driver that will be going from pole position for our Shell drivers. That's Henri Acide. And we have a mix of cars in this because we have the Shell drivers and also some drivers driving the 488 car from last year and many years before. We mix them all together, which means it's a huge grid of cars. And down there on the grid, as you can see, it is very busy indeed. Something of a mountainous backdrop, and let's take a look at what happened in Portimao last time out for the Ferrari Challenge. Manuel Agostner and Henri Acide then having a battle all the way through the race, and there were lots of battles going on elsewhere as well in von Skeltemar, and Manuel Agostner eventually able to take the checkered flag. And she was pretty happy about that win. When it came to race 2 in Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell, well, it was Henri Acide and John Dillon, and a little bit of a nerf there from Henri Acide sent John Dillon off into the distance and took away his race lead on track. However, after a penalty, John Dillon took his first win in the Ferrari Challenge. Alongside me, Nico Spalek then. Good afternoon, Nico. It was great racing in Portimao. We're expecting much of the same here in Le Castellet.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Dave. And there we can see the front row. And Henri Acide, he doesn't have to do any overtaking from his starting position, ideally from his point of view, because he is in P1 and he's been chasing Manuel Agostner for effectively the entirety of the season, it feels like. So it's going to be very interesting what happens at the start. Track limits always a topic here in Le Castellet, and I'm sure, unfortunately, we'll talk about that during the course of the race. The weather certainly another big factor because, as we saw, it is blisteringly hot.
As we speak, we're taking a look at some of the 488 Challenge cars, and it's a very, very big grid of 488 Challenge cars that will line up behind the 296s. Now, the Ferrari 488 drivers have a blue strip across the top of the windscreen. Our Shell drivers in the 296s have a yellow strip across the top of the windscreen.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's also going to be replicated in the graphics, so you always know who is where and who's doing what. In reality, the 296 is such a superior car. It's so much faster that by the end of the race, unless we have a safety car neutralization, we expect the front runners in Coppa Shell to get on terms with the 488 Challenge, and that means that traffic can become a tricky part of navigating when you're when you're engaged in a battle.
Good to welcome back Ernst Kirchmeier in the 199 car, Nico. Now, Ernst is a champion in the Ferrari Challenge. He knows his way around the Ferrari Challenge series, that's for sure. And given to understand from Ernst that he should be here and potentially at the Nürburgring as well. Always good to see him on the track. If I'm honest with you, I'm a bit surprised where he qualified, P5. I expected him to be perhaps 1 or 2 places even higher than that, which just goes to prove that how competitive he is in the Ferrari Challenge Cup Shell category.
Yeah, absolutely. All the drivers on the front 2 rows, Henry Assid, Manuel Agostna, Tibor Valent, Alexander Nussbaumer, and also John Dillon, who in P8 qualified a little bit out of position. All of those are already race winners this season, which just goes to show there's nothing certain, and there is a wide range of potential candidates for the race win also today.
It's a very good point you make, and yes, you're right. You could list a lot of drivers. Now, Fabrizio Fontana is the driver that has been supremely dominant, Nico, in the 488 category, and he will be going from pole position. But he's going to have competition, because there are more 488s on the grid than we've ever seen this season so far, and also we have Joachim Olander, who is returning to the Ferrari Challenge. We know how quick he can be.
Absolutely. And then you add the fact that pole position in the 488s, it's a bit of a misnomer because unlike Henri Hassid, he doesn't have an empty track ahead of him. He has to look what the Coppa Shell drivers are doing. And I said the 296s are much quicker. But when you get to the first turn and it's a chicane left-right here, that means the back of the Shell drivers may come in the way, and then you still have to maintain your track position. So it's going to be tricky for him. At the start particularly, as well as throughout the race, as we look at some of our 488 drivers going up the grid.
Yes, this is a nice way of using the camera to illustrate just how many cars are out there. And if you want the mathematics, there are 29. So we look at Fabrizio Fontana, who is the quickest of the Ferrari Challenge 488 drivers, but he's got Joachim Olander for company, and you could see there Max Mugelli walking around the car there of Michael Martin, and there's von Skeltermar. There is Willem van der Vorm. Welcome back to Willem. Good to see him back racing again in the 182 car. And there is Henri Assid, and Henri Assid then driving for the Castellet racing team is very experienced in the Ferrari Challenge. Of course, it's a relatively local gig for him here at the Circuit Paul Ricard. And Henri Assid, he's banked a point for qualifying in pole position. He goes from P1 on the grid, and of course that is the best possible starting position. And there's kind of no one better for us to choose then to give us something of a track talk of this Circuit Paul Ricard, and that is, of course, Henri Assid.
Hello. My name is Henri Assid. I am a driver of Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell. Bienvenue at Le Castellet. We have to begin with a very, very nice chicane, turn 1 and 2. You have to take a lot the curve, and you have to exit very, very fast. And the following, it's another chicane, and you have to dive directly in the turn 3. And after the turn 4, it's very close, and the turn 5, it's so tricky. So the second part of the track, it's also very, very interesting. You have the Courbe de Cygne, more than 200 kilometers per hour. And then you go directly to the curb Le Bosset. You know this curb. You have to turn on right, 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 never finish. And after, you have a very, very interesting turn. The turn left, Courbe de Bandor. It's very, very difficult to exit of this curve. But when you exit very fast, it's possible to go very fast. I hope to win this race. I think it's my favorite track.
I only wish that I could describe the corner names with the same panache that Henri Assid is able to do it. I feel like I'm really underserving you for that. I apologize. So, lighting gantry, you can see there, as always, a rolling start in the Ferrari Challenge. And we are but 30 seconds away from the formation lap starting here at the Circuit Paul Ricard Le Castellet. We are delighted you are alongside with us to enjoy the race to come from Coppa Shell and the 488 Challenge here at the Circuit Paul Ricard. Richard Mille safety car then will lead the cars away, and you can see that the front row contains Henri Acide and Manuela Gosner. And we are but seconds away from the Richard Mille safety car then. Pulling these cars away onto their formation lap. When it gets to the conclusion of the lap, the safety car will peel off into the pit lane. The cars will line up in grid formation. Now, I just want to explain to you that the cars have to go through their grid boxes on the grid for it to be a correct start, and our race control team look at that very, very carefully indeed. That's the rule, isn't it, Nico? You have to pass through your grid box.
Exactly, and that guarantees that everybody's pretty much aligned, and there is the grid in graphics.
From back to front then, row 15, and then row 14, where we find Niels Sabranson and Tommy Lindroth. And congratulations to Tommy Lindroth, his birthday. It's Gerardo Maiorino starting at the back of the pack. Then it is Quinn, Vitlisbach and Pino Frascaro ahead of Alexei Komarov, and then it is Martin Havas. Gabriele Bini and Maurizio Pittori as we look at the 488 drivers of Sven Schomer and Ivan David Mari there on the 10th row of the grid. On the 9th row of the grid, it's Faisal Shayer and Roger Turnbaum. And then we see Fabrizio Fontana and Joachim Olander on the 8th row of the grid. Into our drivers of the Coppa Shell now, Michael Martin and Christoph Herney. Then it is von Skeltemar and Ray Acosta. They go from P11 and P12. Going from P10 is Pierluigi Alessandri, and Willem van der Vorm goes from P9. That completes row 5. On row 4, it's John Dillon, out of position, in my opinion. Motohiko Isasaki alongside. Ernst Kirchmeier and Thomas Gosner occupy the 3rd row of the grid. It's P5 and 6. Then it's Tibor Valint and Alexander Nussbaumer on the 2nd row of the grid. Pole position, Manuela Gosner is alongside our pole position man, Henri Acide. Let's hear from him now.
Hi everybody, we are at Circuit Le Castellet, my favorite circuit in France and I think in Europe. I am the only French guy on the only French track. So I did the pole position and I want to win the race.
No question with regard to the determination, the only French driver on the only French circuit that appears on the calendar for 2024. Can Henri Acide then make good on his promise of winning the race? Well, he's set himself the best possible starting position because he's going from pole position. There we can see Fabrizio Fontana, and there's Joachim Olander. Joachim Olander in the all-white 488 Challenge. I remind you, the 488 Challenge drivers have the blue strip across the top of the windscreen. Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell drivers have the yellow strip across the top of the windscreen. Nico, more than ever before, with a huge grid of 29 cars. Honestly, this race could be wide open yet.
Yeah, absolutely, and wide open is a good expression because the track is wide open. Track limits, we've got no gravel beds close to the track, but those colored lines, so especially in the first chicane, you can almost bet on 1 or 2 drivers being very ambitious and take the exit road, so that's going to be very interesting. The only thing you really want to avoid is clatter into the car in front of you.
So, drivers to look out for, potentially Ernst Kirchmeier, John Dillon, maybe also Ray Acosta in the 296s. Those are drivers that perhaps have not qualified quite where we would expect to see them. However, for Manuela Gosner and Henri Acide, it's as we were, Nico, because these two have had so many battles during the course of this 2024 season. We expect the battles to recommence here in France as well. So the drivers then, as you can see, we're getting past the pit in, which is where the Richard Mille safety car peels off, and it is the responsibility of Henri Acide and Manuela Gosner to control the pace of the rolling start. This is Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell and 488 race 1 of the weekend. Speed gradually increases then as they round the final turn and head towards the lighting gantry. And when the lights, all the 5 red lights extinguish, then we will be on and racing. We get a green, and let's go racing. A very good start from Manuela Gosner. Henri Acide appearing to bog down a bit at the start of the race, Nico, as they head into turn number 1. I think Manuela Gosner may just have been able to brush off Henri Acide, but Henri Acide, through there, knew what he had got to do, and he stayed with it and remained committed, and sure enough, he has gone through. Alexander Nussbaumer and Tibor Valint. Tibor Valint looking lively. So too is John Dillon. He has Thomas Gosner for company, so it is Acide leading from Manuela Gosner. And then it's Alexander Nussbaumer, I think, is up to P3. ahead of Tibor Valint, and Ernst Kirkmeyer also trying to get involved in that battle, and I think just getting by the car of Alexander Nussbaumer, potentially to pick up that P4 place. So there, as you can see, the wide open spaces that Nico indicated with regards to the runoff areas, which appear all too appealing for some of our drivers. The drag race along the Mistral straight now, heading towards that heavy braking zone into the chicane. Side by side they go for P4, and through the chicane they come, and Willem van der Vorm on the back of this pack with John Dillon there. We've got a yellow flag at turn 5, which would indicate that potentially there has been some strife at turn number 5. We'll take a look at a mo and ascertain who, if anybody, has been caught out at turn number 5. We're thinking it might be the likes of Christoph Herney and Pierluigi Alessandri, and sure enough, you can see actually there's another car involved in that, and that's one of the cars. I think that might be Joachim Olander, Nico, in the 488 challenge. Now, bear in mind, he was right at the front of the pack as well, and we've got a safety car already, I think, just before one lap is completed of this race. Here comes the Richard Mills safety car to pick up control of the race then for those drivers that we think are in strife, and we believe them to be Christoph Herney, Pierluigi Alessandri, Joachim Olander, and also potentially Pino Frascaro, Nico.
Yeah, we didn't quite see that, but I'm sure our guys in the OB van who do such a great job will bring us a replay of that. And yeah, you absolutely called it correctly. Manu Gosnell looked like she got ahead of Henri Acid, but that's where track knowledge and confidence certainly came into play, and Henry knew what he was able to do, and any opportunity he got, he used to go back in front. So a little bit of a moment to breathe after that quite frantic first lap, and not only for us but also for the drivers and everybody in the pits as well.
Sandro Montani driving the safety car this afternoon here at Le Castellet. Now, people that got blistering starts, Maurizio Pittori, Nico, moved up something like 6 or 7 places into P2 in the 488 challenge races. So here we get a replay of the start then. And you'll forgive me, but you're absolutely right. It was Henri Acid's superior knowledge of the track, really, because there is no question about it. The best start of all from the front came from Manuela Gosner. She anticipated the lights going green really well. And there you can see she's a full car length ahead of Henri Acid. But Henri, knowing this track like the back of his hand, knew that actually there was still an opportunity for him to be able to maintain and reconfirm that P1 place. Fabrizio Fontana came under pressure right at the very start as well. So here's Henri then, absolutely assured, because he knew his rotation would allow him to carry more momentum, Nico, because he had the advantageous line through there. So well picked up on that.
Yeah, the other question is, obviously, if you're on pole position, you're supposed to cross the timing line, not behind the number 2 car. So that is certainly, we have no indication the start is under investigation.
No, we're
but
not.
Obviously, routinely, race control will take a look at that if all was in order. So that's going to be something that we'll probably learn when the safety car has come back in.
That's a fair point, as we rode on board then, and see if we can pick out the pieces of what went wrong here. Now, Joachim Olander was already slowing. Pino Frascaro got a touch. It was a bit of a reaction then to lots going on there, wasn't there? And several of the 488 drivers involved in that. And I think Joachim Olander was already slowing. That is Christoph Herney, the Zenith Scuderia driver. With from here we can see a misplaced front wheel. Is that Ivan David Mari, Nico? No, it's Alexei Komarov in the 211 488 car. We can see. So. Yeah, it's all slightly different, and we're seeing that the safety car leads the cars away. Henri Acid, of course, leading the race, but is behind the control of the safety car. Manuela Gosner, then it's Tibor Valint ahead of Ernst Kirkmeyer and Alexander Nussbaumer. Now, Ernst Kirkmeyer had a very good start, Nico, moving himself up into that P4 position. Now, Henri is weaving from side to side to try and maintain a little bit of temperature into those tyres. I am tempted to say the tyres probably hadn't got up to their operating window anyway, because not even one lap was completed before the safety car has come out. So they've not been through a heat cycle yet.
No, certainly not through a full one, and that means the drivers obviously, even in these temperatures, have to be mindful to keep the tyre pressures up.
We think we've lost the likes of Roger Turnbull Alexei Komarov, Christoph Herny, Pierluigi Alessandri, Joachim Olander, and also Pino Frascaro. That's what our timing screen is indicating on in our studio here. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on that, but for the moment, we are behind the safety car. It's a new race duration for 2024 of 30 minutes plus 1 lap. And, well, the drivers are having to just compose themselves and try and keep themselves in the zone behind the safety car. Now, Maurizio Pittori was another driver that had a blistering start, and also Gabriele Bini is up to P3 for our 488 Challenge cars. And, coming into this weekend, Fabrizio Fontana has the opportunity of sealing the championship. New into the 488s is Sven Schomer.
Well, I'm proud to race for Ferrari and with the Ferrari car. I like it a lot. I used to watch motorsport a lot, but I didn't do it. I just started lately, like last season, with the Club Challenge, and now I advanced to the Challenge Series. I think it's a very fast car. It has a lot of horsepower. So it's fast on the straight and also in the corners. I like it a lot. This track is very technical for me, and I try to do my best. And yeah, let's see. It is a family. It's really nice with the team, with all the other race drivers. It's really nice to be here. Yeah. I'm really stressed usually before the race or before the qualifying, but when I get in the car, I calm down a little bit, and then it's just the driving. So I think that's what's good about it.
We're thrilled that you are in the Ferrari Challenge. Big welcome from our side. And doing a pretty good job up to P5, I think, in the 488s, Nico.
Yeah, definitely. One of the drivers who unfortunately was caught out in that incident also, even though he's still running, is Faisal Shahir. And if you were watching our qualifying in the morning, he was threatening and challenging Fabrizio Fontana all the way to the end. Fabrizio Fontana, who's now got 9 pole positions from 9 attempts to his credit. So just to underscore how rare that has been, that he had to fight all the way to the final meter. So unfortunately for him, he's dropped all the way down to the list of 488 Challenge drivers who are still running.
Well, initially we were on the Rosso Corsa pit wall. Now we go into the garages of Reparto Corsa Ram. And nice to see AC here, Nico, watching on, a former Ferrari Challenge driver who's actually in the garages this weekend. I'd rather see you on the track, AC. We miss you, Alessandro. Henri Assi, then P1 for the Shell drivers, P1 for the 488 drivers is Fabrizio Fontana. That's the way it looks, but I remind you, not even 1 lap has been completed of full race action. It's an unfortunate incident right at the start of the race, which has taken out maybe 5 cars, which means the grid is back down to 23 cars. And the Richard Mills safety car we ride on board with right now. We were down there last night, you and I, Nico, and, you know, the opportunity to see up close and personal this Paul Ricard circuit. And something really interesting you were telling me and is that the colour bands that surround the circuit Paul Ricard, let's take a look just before we finish that little question. Take a look at what went on here. So I think Fabrizio then... not Fabrizio, Pino Frascaro getting sent up into the air a little bit there through no fault of his own. He was kind of pulled out there, and I'm still really none the wiser. Sorry, I was saying about something I learned as we see the stricken Christoph Herny car awaiting recovery. The colour bands across the acres of tarmac runoff area that we have here at Paul Ricard. You were saying that there are different levels of abrasion on the surfaces dependent upon the stripe's colour. So blue is a little less abrasive than the red, is that correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding. That it's kind of like effectively replaces the gravel beds. And how quite that works from a technical point of view, I cannot answer. But
forgive me interrupting you. I've seen that Motohiko Sasaki is dropping down the order, Nico, on the lap, the safety car.
Maybe just a transponder issue. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll let you know.
I think it is a transponder issue because it's returned now to the graphics in terms of where he should be. Here we can see the cars being recovered and the Roger Tornbaum car, I think, there of the 222 488 is going to be recovered. And, well, the track recovery team working as quickly and as hard as they can to get everything to a position of safety so that we can go back to racing. But inevitably, this is really going to change the shape of this race, because drivers who we mentioned had qualified out of position, whilst they will have the benefit of almost a new start to the race, they're not going to have as long to make the progress that they would have liked to have done.
Yeah, if you want to identify some positives, even though we would obviously like to watch some more enjoyable racing than a procession behind the safety car, track limits are probably going to be less of an issue just because of the reduced race time, and obviously for the Pirelli P0 tires, they are not under quite as much stress for the first 10 minutes of this race, and therefore those drivers who did more laps during qualifying, it's going to be less punishing for them over the remainder of the race. But we still hope that we go back to racing very soon.
Good point made. So, safety car still leading the cars around. We've got at least another lap behind the safety car. There is our race leader in the 488s, and that is Fabrizio Fontana. Now, Maurizio Pittori, who's right up his trumpet in P2. Now, Maurizio Pittori is well known in the Ferrari Challenge and knows how to drive a 488 Challenge car. Fabrizio may not have it all his own way, you know. And again, we reach this point, Nico, when the race effectively restarts. The front of the 488 pack could quite easily be on the back of the 296s just on the opening lap.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, as we can see the safety car leading the cars around in a wide angle, and there is still the Cristofani car quite prominently on the track. So there I say it's going to be at least one more lap after this one, with several cars still in dangerous positions, as we took a look at the Live Championship.
Yes, and if it stayed this way and the race finished now, Henri Acid would be on 117 points. Manuel Agostino would move up to P2, but that's only a point ahead of John Dillon, who's relegated to P3. Then it would be Thibaut Valent and Alexander Nussbaumer. That's if the race were to finish right now. Not only are the points up for grabs in the race, of course, depending on the position that you finish in, but if you set the fastest lap in the race, you also get another point. So every point is absolutely critical, and we've got a red flag now, Nico, I'm sorry to say, and that is because of the recovery operation, which is taking far longer than anticipated. That means the race has been red flagged, and that's very unusual in the Ferrari Challenge, and it's also so unusual after having had several laps behind the safety car. So red flag situation then for our drivers and all the teams, of course, as well. So we expect that the safety car will line the cars up on the start-finish straight. No need, I wouldn't have thought, to come into the pit lane, because where the incidents are is right the other side of the track. But race control, which we don't have a direct link to, we don't know how they will feel about that. And there you can see one of the cars that's been put into a position of safety. We said a welcome back to Willem van der Vorm, a welcome back to Willem's wife as well, who's, you can see there, watching on, and Willem having done a reasonable job at the start of the race, moving up to P8. And there you can see Jean-Luc Daria, who's here supporting one of our Trofeo Pirelli drivers. So Jean-Luc Daria himself, a fine racing driver. He was just looking on. He represents the Emil Frey racing team. And we ride on board then with the Henri Acid car. And behind Henri Acid is Manuel Agostino. And I remind you that we have a red flag in this Coppa Shell and 488 race 1 of the weekend. So, as I say, I'm expecting the cars to be lined up on the start-finish straight, but it might be that they're brought into the pit lane. We rate to say they are coming into the pit lane. Absolutely, we can see now. Very narrow through there. Went through there last night in the rental car, and there's not a lot of room, I can tell you. So, yep, the safety car does bring them back into the pit lane now. Any cars that are running down there will, I assume, line up behind the safety car at the start of the pit lane, which is exactly where our commentary broadcast studio is here at Circuit Paul Ricard, here in Le Castellet. Or in enough, that's where Omri Asid is going right now. So you'll have to forgive any extraneous noises coming from our broadcast studio. Somehow, despite the temperatures being in the 30s, I seem to have managed to catch hold of a cold of some description, which is less than desired. So there are all the cars. Then the driver's doors open to let some well-needed air into the cars. Now the cars do have air conditioning, because you'll recall the track temperature, how hot it was, and the air temperature as well. Imagine what it's like inside of one of these either 296 or 488 Challenge cars. Very, very hot place indeed. So drivers walking down the, pit crews walking down the grid then. And Omri Asid actually getting out of the car. Now the clock has been stopped in this red flag situation, as you can see. Stopped with 16 minutes and 54 seconds plus 1 lap remaining in the race. Now, of course, race control can deem to alter the clock and alter the duration when we will go back to racing, but quite clearly, race control panel deciding that it was better to red flag the race, and we're being told the race will resume at 14:32. So that's about 10 minutes from now. 14:32 then is when the race will resume. And we'll let you know as soon as we know anything about whether the race duration will alter as a consequence. It's a busy schedule, busy timetable here at Le Castellet this weekend, with a lot of sessions booked to be out there on track. And yeah, we are resuming at 14:32, and there's no question of that. Ordinarily, if race control predict a time, they say resume at 14:32 to be TBA, to be advised, or TBC, to be confirmed. There's none of that. They're absolutely resolute that we are going to restart racing in 10 minutes time at 14:32. Local time here now is 14:22, and yes, it is confirmed that the race will restart at 14:32. Absolute confirmation we're seeing from race control on our information screen as one of our cameramen gets a lovely piece of camera art through the rims here of our Ferrari Challenge cars. So then, the reason for the stoppage is because we lost the likes of Roger Turnbaum, Alexei Komarov, Christoph Herny, Pierluigi Alessandri, Joachim Olander, and Pino Frascaro. Very disappointingly, but hey, motor racing is motor racing, and often incidents do occur. Certainly nothing malicious, just one of those things, regrettably, and yeah, hence the initial safety car and then the red flag situation. There is the 136 car of Alexander Nussbaumer, who's running P5, and right behind him is the car of Thomas Gosner, the black and green 161 car of Thomas Gosner then, whose daughter Manuela incidentally is P2. Right behind Thomas Gosner is John Dillon, a race winner last time out at the Ferrari Challenge in Portimao. He qualified a little bit out of position. Then it's Willem van der Vorm in the 182 car. So, and then it's Ray Acosta in car number 107 that you can see there. Ray Acosta drives for the collection, and Ray Acosta very much a Ferrari Challenge North America racer as well. There's von Skeltermar, Kessel Racing driver, and long-standing Kessel Racing driver is von Skeltermar, and behind him the 105 car of Motohiko Isazaki, who's last year's Coppa Shell Am champion, elevated into the Coppa Shell Championship for this year. Motohiko Isazaki. Before we see the car of Michael Martin, and then the front runners in terms of the 488 Challenge cars, and the front running Fabrizio Fontana. He goes from P1, and right behind him is Maurizio Pittori for Radici Automobili, best lap. He could be a danger man to Fabrizio Fontana when the race does resume at 14:32. Behind Maurizio Pittori is Gabriele Bini, who got a good start right at the start of the race. It seems a long time ago now, and Not one complete racing lap has been conducted, unfortunately, but there we are. These things happen, and of course driver safety is of paramount importance, and therefore until all the cars are absolutely recovered and put into a position of safety, we cannot continue the race. And once again, I apologize for the various noises coming out of my mouth, which is, I'm very poorly. I just want you to know that. Let's take a look once again at the highlights from Portimao. So as you can see, the cars get off then, and well, right at the very start at Portimao, there was plenty going on involving plenty of drivers, I'm sad to say, and was it ever thus? Because we had a red flag right at the start of the race in Portimao. Motohiko Isasaki was waving with his normal level of enthusiasm, and when the race got back underway, it was Manuel Agostino leading HRI Aid. Super slow-mo there of the top three cars with John Dillon tucked into P3. Thomas Gosner had a bit of a whale tail moment. And this was Pino Frascaro driving the number 240 in the 488 challenge race. And he was under pressure and soon lost his lead, regrettably. He tried to close the door, and in so doing, unfortunately, that sent Pino Frascaro around. All the way to the checkered flag, Manuela Gosner was chased, but she was not going to be beaten. And she took race victory, and that really pleased Zeus Scrimpias, one of the drivers from the Repaudo Corsa Ram team, who they share certainly the affection, and it was another win for Fabrizio Fontana for the 488 Challenge drivers. And there you can see how delighted they were. Catching some rays then ahead of the start of race 2. Hadn't seen that shot in the highlights before now, and Manuela Gosner, unfortunately, with something of an issue, not half of much of an issue as John Dillon had. He was in the lead of the race, and then he did so well to control that after receiving just a little bit of an attention from HRI Aid. Alexander Nussbaumer on board with him was doing everything he could to get past some cars, and as you can see, Pino Frascaro once again was having door mirrors rear aligned. HRI Aid took P1 on track, but he would pick up a penalty and John Dillon would take the win, as you can see, lining up behind P1. His first win in the Ferrari Challenge, and Fabrizio Fontana certainly wasn't his first win.
No, definitely not. I mean, he really has been dominant, and after he looked like he had been overtaken at the start, he reasserted himself as the front runner in the 488, so he will resume that position. When we get back in about 4 minutes time, that means the safety car will lead the cars away. The clock will start ticking immediately, so the race is effectively going to restart then, as we take another look. And actually, the main incident is already to the left of us, but there we can see Alexei Komarov and Pino Frascaro coming together, and there, after the apex of the corner, is where the Christoph Hörny car was stationary, and I'm not quite sure what happened there, whether he was facing the wrong direction, so that means either he spun around on his own, or he got an assist. There you can see, there is the Christoph Hörny car, and Joachim Olander certainly only was an accessory after the fact.
And he was completely unsighted, wasn't he? And he made contact with the Luigi Alessandri car, was pointing in the wrong direction. Now, driver coach to our birthday racing driver, Tommy Lindroth, is the very, very talented Fabienne Volvend, who's with the equally talented Ludovica.
Thank you, guys. As I said before to Fabienne, we met only during the red flag. So, Fabienne, we need to more technical, because I want to ask you something more about the strategy that you use with Tommy during this qualifying session and the strategy for the race.
Yeah, we had a difficult qualifying this morning. Tommy struggled to put the lap together, so we only started from P13. But yeah, he did a mega start, kept it clean from P13 to P7. And now, of course, the long safety car, good decision that they put the red flag out, so the guys have some fun racing later.
Fabienne, during these minutes, these moments, Tommy, how it is? Is more stress? Is more under pressure? How it is?
Yeah, for them it's really hard because like they're so focused and getting ready, and then of course the long break. They never know when it's gonna restart. He already said like I don't want to drink because I already need to pee, and yeah, so we're just standing here with the umbrella, being ready and prepared.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, and hopefully we meet again without a red flag. Ciao.
Thanks, Fabienne, and thanks, Ludovica. Did I hear that correctly? Tommy Lindra said I don't want to drink.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great to get these unfiltered voices from the cockpit and the technicalities of being a racing driver.
Well, there you go. Well done to Tommy Lindrath, who had a good start and moved up several places. He'll be hoping to continue that trajectory when the race does get going again in just a couple of minutes' time. In fact, 1.5 minutes' time, because we're scheduled to restart at 14:32, and I have no indication to suggest that is going to be altered. So there we can see the 218 car, one of our 488 Aid challenge drivers, Maurizio Pittori, and he's in a good position to really chase down Fabrizio Fontana. And here you can see the 1 minute board is going to go up right now, right on cue. So we are going to go back to racing behind the safety car. So effectively it'll be another rolling start. We've not seen the clock altered at all, Nico. So I'm suggesting that the duration is going to stay the same, but it is effectively after the safety car, it's going to be like 15 minutes plus a lap, isn't it?
Well, yeah, effectively, and that means, given that the safety car came out very, very early, effectively only after half a lap, that reduces the time that the drivers, you mentioned it, who were out of position, arguably, will have at their disposal to do something about it. So it's going to be a single file restart after this one lap that the safety cars lead the cars around, so no lining up side by side as we all get ready. It's about 10 seconds to go.
So the tension in the broadcast studio is palpable. Imagine what it's like down there in the pit lane. Absolutely extraordinary. Fabienne said it was good that they called it a red flag. I have to say, if it would have been behind the safety car for this period of time, it would have been, well, shattering for the drivers. I have to say, it would have been race over. You're quite right. So at least this way we do get back to racing, as the safety car has peeled off, and therefore these cars that are lined up a little bit further back, including the car for Gabriele Bini, off they go then. Now there you can see von Skeltermar, there's Motohiko Isasaki, Mikael Martin, and there's our race-leading 488 challenge car, and that's being driven by Fabrizio Fontana. So the clock has started immediately, so we're probably going to be under 15 minutes by the time the safety car peels off and comes in, and therefore one of my oft-used expressions for which I should be slapped with a wet fish will be a dash for cash to the checkered flag, I think, for our drivers, whether a Coppa Shell driver in the 296 car or a 488 challenge driver. Safety car will come in at the conclusion of this lap. Generally speaking, the safety car will speed up significantly in the second half of the lap to get the drivers back up to a decent speed, but it will be the responsibility of Henri Acide to control the pace, and well, Manuela Gosner will be hoping to anticipate when Henri is going to go for it.
Yeah, and even though it feels like hours ago, let's see if there was anything about the start that race control still felt like was maybe untoward, and that would be announced once the safety car has come in to avoid drivers taking that into account for their strategy. So that's another part of the equation that we'll have an eye on, but obviously the most important thing is we'll go back to racing and we'll be able to enjoy the 296s and the 488 at race speed.
You're absolutely right. We are just minutes away from the race getting back underway. We're going to have about 14.5 minutes plus a lap to do. Everyone's tyres should be in really, really good condition because they've not been through a heat cycle yet. These are the tyres that are on the cars that were used in qualifying as well. Please bear that in mind. So drivers that did more laps in qualifying than some other drivers, theoretically their tyres should be in even greater shape than they are. So we will see who can do what. There you can see, as I indicated, that the Richard Mills safety car will really, really speed up, peel off into the pit lane, and then Henri Acide will control the pace of the restart. He's weaving from side to side, just little inputs into the steering just to just to slowly generate some temperature into those tyres. You can be too aggressive in terms of weaving and do more damage to the tyres than you're doing good, I am told by those vastly more experienced than me. So it's still a big grid of cars, still some 23 cars that are out there ready to go for it over the remaining minutes and laps of this first race of our Ferrari Challenge weekend here at Paul Ricard. You can see Manuela Gosner now, he's not weaving, as she tries to anticipate when Henri Acid is going to go. He has gone. He can't accelerate, then decelerate. And I would say he did a very good job at the restart of this, because I think he caught Manuela Gosner out a bit there. And Manuela Gosner in turn has got Thibaut Valent and Ernst Kirchmayr and Alexander Nussbaumer breathing down her neck. As here we go back to racing. Henri Acid, nothing to worry about at all. He's got 3 or 4 car lengths already by dint of the fact he did a really good job at the restart. So let's see who can do what and where and when. As Thomas Gosner stretches his legs away from John Dillon. They are running in P6 and P7. Here's our race leader. And Manuela Gosner under pressure from that P2 from Thibaut Valent. So Thibaut Valent, who's got Ernst Kirchmayr and Alexander Nussbaumer behind him. And there you can see from our high drone shot there just how much of a lead already Henri Acid has, as the cars then head on to the Mistral Straight here at the Circuit Paul Ricard. Already 1.5 seconds to the good as they round out the first sector. That's what Henri Acid has over Manuela Gosner, carrying as much speed as possible before this heavy braking zone, where you really do. You climb just a little bit uphill through this chicane. And Henri Acid through, and Manuela Gosner still able to show a clean pair of heels to Thibaut Valent. And Thibaut Valent running in P3. So from race control, we can see that the incident involving cars 107 and 240 in turn 5 is under investigation. And that was when you will recall Ray Acosta and Pino Frascaro got together, and for a moment Pino was a little bit airborne. So Henri Acid leading from Gosner, from Valent, from Kirchmayr. They're all spreading out a little bit now, and there you can see Fabrizio Fontana, who's leading in the 488s. And I don't know what happened to Maurizio Pittori, who was P2 in the 488 challenges, but he's dropped right to the back of the pack now. So Maurizio Pittori, who was looking very lively and had a great opportunity potentially to take it to Fabrizio Fontana, clearly something went wrong.
Yeah, and Sven Schirmer also dropped down the order, so the assumption, even though we didn't get any indication of that yet, is that maybe those two had a coming together of some sort. Maybe we'll get a replay, as that certainly plays into the hands of Fabrizio Fontana, who's now got Gabriele Bini behind him, but it's 3.3 seconds of a gap, so that gives him extra time. Oh, and that was Thomas Gosner almost going airborne across the curbs.
And 1 or 2 drivers already picking up track limits warnings. One of them is Quinn Vidlisbach, who is one of our Ferrari Challenge 488 drivers, who actually is racing in the Ferrari Challenge with very little race experience. In fact, he doesn't even have a driving license. So Quinn Vidlisbach, welcome to the Ferrari Challenge. He's got a track limits warning. So too has Thomas Gosner, and so too has Thibaut Valent, as a round has gone. One of our 488 cars, and that's the 205 car of Faisal Shayer, the Scuderia Lebanon driver who went around. You could probably hear the screams from the Pirelli tyres in protest as the car was rotating. So a correction from race control. It's the 107 and 144 in turn 5 that's under investigation. So it's Pierluigi Alessandri, who of course we saw pointing in the wrong direction. Fabrizio Fontana is leading for the 488s. Henri Acid is leading in the 296 Coppa Shell race, and it's quite a fight going on now for P3 between Thibaut Valent and Ernst Kirchmayr and Alexander Nussbaumer. In fact, that is the bigger fight of them of the two, if you like, because Ernst Kirchmayr is currently running P4 and Alexander Nussbaumer trying to get on terms with Ernst Kirchmayr, and ran a bit wide there, and they've all broken away a little bit from Thomas Gosner and John Dillon. In replay here, Two of our cars absolutely side by side, and that was a really, really good overtake heading into the chicane. And then dialing into that left-hander. There you could see one car not able to make the chicane, having to go through. In replay, this is Faisal Shayer, who looked like he'd got a deflated tyre already, and that's why the 205 car went around. You could see it wobbling from the previous shot we saw. So Faisal Shayer then having gone around. Car 107 has picked up a drive-through penalty for causing a collision. So that is Ray Acosta, who's currently running P11. You'll see it on screen in a moment that Ray Acosta has got a drive-through penalty. So race control have deemed it was down to Ray, and Ray will have to take a drive-through penalty within 3 laps of that award having been being notified to Ray Acosta. Henri Assi leading by 1.765 seconds over Manuel Agostina and Tibor Valin, who's P3. It's then Fabrizio Fontana, Gabriele Bini, and Ivan David Mari, who are the top 3 in the 488s. But let me also mention Vidler's back, who's running P4. Well done to Gwyn Vidler's back, because with no driving experience and little racing experience, he's running P4. Very creditable. And Tommy Lindroth is right behind him, running P5. Here's Thomas Gosner, and here is John Dillon, there P6, P7. There's Willem van der Vorm running P8, ahead of von Skeltema, who all 4 of these cars are reasonably close together. You can just see Motohiko Isasaki running in P10. Then, of course, Ray Acosta, who has got to serve a drive-through penalty, so he'll have to come into the pit lane. We've got 7.5 minutes plus a lap as von Skeltema is all over the back of Willem van der Vorm, trying to find a way by and trying to convert his P9 into P8. So Fons clearly has got the pace. He's just got to find a way to get past that Willem van der Vorm car. Thus far, he's been denied by Willem, and it's great to see Willem back racing once again. And the more these two fight, of course, it is allowing Motohiko Isasaki to get back into this battle as well. Fastest laps from each of the categories. Well, for our Coppa Shell drivers, no surprise, it comes from Henri Assid, and perhaps no surprise from our 488 Challenge drivers either. It comes from Fabrizio Fontana. They are the drivers that pick up an additional point for setting the fastest lap in the race. So for Henri Assid, then, it could be a maximum points haul from race 1, having qualified pole position. That's a point. Then he gets the race win, potentially. Another bag of points, and then fastest lap as well, as Ray Acosta has served his drive-through penalty and returns back out on track. And Henri Assid then sets the fastest lap at 2:04.919 from Henri Assid, whose gap has extended to 2.5 seconds. Such is his great pace. Of course, he's got a completely clear track ahead of him, and credit to Manuel Agostina, who's also broken away from Tibor Valint and Alexander Nussbaumer and Ernst Kirkmeyer. Those 3. It's a bit of a triple play for P3 at the moment, as those 3 have broken away from the P6, 7 and 8 battle. So here we can see the 3 cars of Tibor Valint and Alexander Nussbaumer and Ernst Kirkmeyer, both of whom are quicker than Tibor Valint, but they've got to find a way by. And currently they have not been able to do that. In fact, they're not even close enough to be able to do that. 5.5 minutes remaining plus 1 lap. This is Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell and 488 race 1 of the weekend from Paul Ricard.
Yeah, and this battle for the final podium position really looks like it's going to be with us for the remainder of the race. Oh, and there was Alexander Nussbaumer, who got a little bit wide on the exit of that turn and had to really avoid cluttering into those markers, because he doesn't have a track limit warning yet, but you're really not encouraged to take out those track limit markers. And he just barely did that. So 5 minutes remaining, and he still, in spite of that excursion, remains fairly close to Tibor Valint and hasn't given Ernst Kirchmeier an opportunity to overtake him in that intra-Austrian battle, which would then be for P4.
Yes, good point, well made there. Tibor Valint, then driver of the 132 car, who took a win at the opening of the 2024 season at Mugello. His son Benz races in the Trofeo Pirelli category. Tibor a former Ferrari Challenge racer, back to it and really enjoying his racing, particularly racing with his son. Now, they're not in the same category, but of course they share the same race weekend. And here is Von Skeltermaar taking a look at the inside of Willem van der Vorm. And, well, respect to Willem there, who avoided a collision. Now, he has maintained his position ahead of Von Skeltermaar, but there will be an argument as to whether he perhaps got something of a slight advantage there. Now, no place was lost, but perhaps he gained a bit of speed and a bit of space, perhaps. I'm sure race control will take a look at that. He did well to avoid a collision, which I think there could have been, because I think the gap that he wanted to turn into was really rather full of the Von Skeltermaar car, who's having another go right now. And this is for P8 as he dives to the inside of Willem van der Vorm, but Willem has got the momentum, and just ahead of them is John Dillon, and Fons now does go through as Willem ran really wide, and perhaps he led him through. That might be what that was all about.
Well, I think bottom line is he got the place, and therefore any discussion in race control about this incident is probably mute. John Dillon, obviously our race winner last time, in by his standards a relatively lowly P7 position. So Von Skeltermaar, he now having moved up the order, will probably try and get on terms with John Dillon and climb up the order and get onto an upward trajectory in his relationship with his 296 chart.
Maybe so. Right, I think he will be on John before the end of the race, which comes in, goodness me, around about 2.5 minutes time plus a lap. Henri Acid continuing to extend his lead by another 4/10 now, up to very nearly 3 seconds between himself and Manuel Agostner. And Thibaut Valin continues to hold off the ravages of Alexander Nussbaumer and Ernst Kirchmeier, who are running P3, P4 and P5, those drivers respectively. Track limits are plenty still coming out here. Willem van der Vorm picking up one, and there's no surprise. We saw him run really rather wide. There is John Dillon, and very soon he's going to have the rather sharp shark's teeth in his rear view screen. And I would suggest that Fons is looking as aggressive as the front of his car would indicate in this race.
Yeah, for sure. The fact that we had the long interruption means that overtakes and lapping of backmarking cars, in that case the 488 drivers, is not going to be a matter in this race. What does matter is overtakes on the track, and we have multiple battles, and that was the 275 car of Sven Schirmer, who's trying to elevate himself back up the order following whatever incident happened earlier.
Faisal Shaier on the right-hand side of your picture, then you can see the front end of the car compress as the brakes are applied, and then runs wide, tries to get a good trajectory. Ahead was Niels Sebranson, so Sven Schirmer losing out to Faisal Shaier. Tommy Lindroth is running P5. We run the telemetry on the Henri Acid car up to 200 kilometers per hour, make that 210 before the brake has to be applied in third gear, holding the revs at between 7.5 and 8,000 revs, then back on the gas once again, then having gone through the final sequence of turns and head towards breaking the timing beam. Now Henri Acid will indeed extend his lead still further over Manuel Agostner to very nearly 4 seconds. It's 3.838 right now between Henri Acid and Manuel Agostner. And Thibaut Valin steadfast in that final podium place in P3. Ahead of Alexander Nussbaumer, Ernst Kirchmeier, Thomas Gostner, Von Skeltermaar has got past John Dillon. So not only did he get on terms with John Dillon, he got past John Dillon as well. We can see from the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. And fair play to Ray Acosta, who's come back out having served a drive-through penalty and is already on the back of the Coppa Shell cars, having got past a number of the 488 Challenge cars that he returned onto the track in the midst of.
Yeah, definitely. And there is our front runner, and as the clock is approaching quadruple zeros in just a few moments, that means whenever he crosses the timing line, there's going to be just one more lap. So the remainder of this plus one lap as he's on the Mistral Straight now, going through the chicane. And he's only got one sector and the lap to do, and Manu Gostner is a decent 4 seconds away, but this battle is still going on, and nothing's decided in terms of the final podium position.
You're absolutely right. Although I'm amazed that the Thibaut Valent, Alexander Nussbaumer, Ernst Kirchmeier they're able to run in the dirty air alongside each other for as long as they have, but it's been brilliant. Now, as you can see, Von Skelterma has got by John Dillon, and John Dillon is almost under threat now from Willem van der Vorm. Will Fons have time to get on terms with Thomas Gostner? I don't think so. I think Thomas is sufficiently up the road that the battles that they have enjoyed over many, many races won't necessarily recommence here. So there is the car of Henri Acide, who has led this from the restart, 3.7 seconds to the good. He's about to start the final lap. So here comes Henri Acide then to cross the timing line. Weaving a bit there, almost as concerned that the checkered flag was going to come out, which would have been defied all logic, and it didn't. So the race continues as we expect, for this is the additional lap, and Henri Acide ahead of Manuel Gostner. Then it is this three-way triple play of Thibaut Valent and Alexander Nussbaumer and Ernst Kirchmayr. I think, to be fair, Valent and Nussbaumer have broken away a little bit from Ernst Kirchmayr here, but Thibaut Valent appears to have it all completely under control for the final podium place, but well, Alexander Nussbaumer would really love to be on the podium. He has taken a race win, but other than his win, he's not been on the podium, which is very unusual. Now, car 151, John Dillon, it goes from bad to worse. He's going to pick up a time penalty of 5 seconds for track limits. That's going to drop him down the order, and let's be honest, John was in a very strong position in the Drivers' Championship. That's going to hurt him.
Yeah, that's going to hurt him. Not after the very high from last time, a low today, but let's go back to this battle, because absolutely Alexander Nussbaumer now is going to feel that this is obviously his last opportunity.
Yes.
It's not an obvious overtaking opportunity remaining on this lap. We have seen adventurous moves made into the very final turn, the right-hander, so that's where probably Thibaut Valent has to be very defensive and stay on the inside. But maybe Alexander Nussbaumer can find something even before.
That is brilliant if he can make that stick. I mean, and not only Thibaut loses out 2 places because Ernst Kirchmayr has come through as well. Now, whether he made a slight error there, because he ran wide, but Thibaut is not prepared to give this up without a fight. But I think inevitably he's going to have to, because, as you predicted, Nico, it could come somewhere, and it came where neither of us were expecting it. And Henri Acide, all of a sudden, his gap has come down to virtually nothing between himself and Manuel Gostner, but it all came a little bit too late. Now, whether he just eased off because he had so much margin of comfort, I don't know. Acide wins from Manuel Gostner. Then it was Alexander Nussbaumer, Ernst Kirchmayr and Thibaut Valent. Then it will be Thomas Gostner, Von Skelterma. Now, John Dillon's going to drop down the order because of that 5-second time penalty, but here comes Fabrizio Fontana. It's another win in the 488 class for Fabrizio Fontana, who, bar one race, has been undefeated in this 488 Challenge Championship for 2024. And Henri Acide, race winner for Ferrari Challenge Coppa, and heading towards yet another victory in the 269 car. It'll be his 8th. It'll be his 8th victory this season. Fabrizio Fontana wins in the 488 Challenge race. Not only does he get the points for the win, he gets the points for the fastest lap as well, or point for the fastest lap. And he heads Gabriele Bini and Ivan David Mari, who will take P2 and P3 respectively.
Absolutely. That means, by our reckoning, Fabrizio Fontana maintains his chance to claim the championship already tomorrow. And, I mean, that's quite an achievement. Both winners in the race have completed the trifecta of pole position, fastest lap and race win, so a perfect day for Henri Acide and Fabrizio Fontana. And there again is this moment that, I don't want to say we were waiting for it, but it was kind of obvious something was almost inevitably happening in that three-way battle, and it came at the expense of Thibaut Valent, who went from P podium to P5 in the matter of one turn. And he did, as you said, he fought back and he tried to get back on terms, at least with Ernst Kirchmayr, but nothing doing there, and he's gonna be disappointed that he allowed that to happen. But
What he also allowed, though, Nico, and I think credit should be made, is he allowed racing room. That would have been very easy to close the door and for there to have been a complete clattering together.
Yeah, that obviously that is an extension of the respect that the drivers have for each other, and very good of you to point that out. It could have gone very wrong for everybody, but P5 for Thibaut Valent, P4 for Ernst Kirchmeier and Alexander Nussbaumer we will see on the podium. And Parc Fermé is coming up. The drivers will come underneath the podium, which is actually almost next door to our commentary studio. So close the windows because of the champagne, Dave.
Yeah, we're gonna get soaking potentially. Here the cars come then to park up, and Manuel Agostino then, who I don't know, and I would love to know, and I'll try and find out. Henri Acide went from almost 4 seconds of margin to very nearly 0.
Yeah, you could. I looked at the timing charts, and he lost 1.4 seconds on that final sector. I think it was that weaving motion that you referenced, but
I wonder if he thought that was the final lap, Henri Acide takes the win from Manuel Agostino and Alexander Nussbaumer. They are the drivers you'll see on the podium. Ernst Kirchmeier, Thibaut Valent, Thomas Gostner were the Ps 4, 5 and 6. Then it was von Skeltermar, John Dillon, Willem van der Vorm and Motohiko Sasaki completed the top 10 of our Coppa Shell drivers, ahead of Michael Martin and Ray Acosta. Now for our 488 Challenge drivers, Fabrizio Fontana ahead of Gabriele Bini and Ivan David Mari. Well done to Quinn Wiedler's back then on his debut, taking a very creditable P4 in class ahead of Faisal Shaer, Sven Schomer and Tommy Lindroth celebrating his birthday. Then it's Gerardo Marino, Martin Havas and Niels Sebranson. Regrettably, we lost Maurizio Pittori, Roger Turnbull, Pierluigi Alessandri, Christoph Herney, Joachim Olander, and Alexei Komarov, as well as Pino Frascaro as well, which is a great shame. But hey, that's motor racing. Henri Acide, then, I wonder if he thought that was the final lap. He was weaving in celebration. Well, I wonder if he'll ever tell us that. Let's hear from him now. He is race winner.
Harry, congratulations from pole position to P1 in this race 1. You win at your home circuit.
Yes, I love this circuit. I am at home here. I think I won with all category I did on this track. It was just half a race because there is a safety car during the 5 or 6 lap, and it was just I had just to manage the restart after the safety car, but it was good, and after it was easy to make a big difference. And after first race, first win in Le Castellet, I love it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done, Henri Acide. Yeah, I think there might be something in what you were saying there. We saw him weaving from side to side as he headed towards the timing line. I wonder whether he thought this is the last lap, and actually it wasn't. Well, who knows? It doesn't really matter. It's academic because he crossed the timing line, and that's what matters. And so did this man, 269 Fabrizio Fontana, who keeps his championship hopes alive for this weekend. Can he do it? We'll find out more from Ludovica.
Fabrizio, congratulations, another success for you here for the first time at Le Castellet. Not a really easy day for you, but it's very important result for the championship standing.
Yes, it's amazing. We are here in 15 or 14 48, and this morning the pole, and now I'm here together. It's fantastic, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Here come the highlights then of that Ferrari Challenge, Coppa Shell and 488 Challenge race. As you can see right at the very start, Manuel Agostino appearing to have a brilliant start. Pino Frascaro from the back of the pack with the 488 Challenge cars having a go as well. And so too Fabrizio Fontana under real pressure right at the start of the race. So Henri Acide being chased by Manuel Agostino for the lead of the race. And then what a battle that was going on between Thibaut Valent and Alexander Nussbaumer. 1 or 2 cars pointing in the wrong direction, and 1 or 2 getting airborne, and many having to take avoiding action to avoid further damage. But unfortunately, with 2 cars like that, head-to-head, pointing in the wrong direction, one of them. That inevitably would bring out the safety car, and it wouldn't be long before the safety car was converted into a red flag. However, when we got back to racing once again, Henri Acide, with one of the best safety car restarts I've seen for a long time, put himself way ahead of Manuel Agosna. There was plenty of action going on in the 488 Challenge race as well for the positions, but it was Henri Acide and Fabrizio Fontana that had no problems. We lost the 218 car, which regrettably didn't make the chicane for Maurizio Pittori, who'd been in a really good position. And here we could see John Dillon and von Skeltmar and Willem van der Worm were also fighting over the places in the Ferrari Challenge Coppa Shell race. Fabrizio Fontana then has been such a star in the 488 Challenge across the course of the season. And Henri Acide would take the win for the Coppa Shell drivers ahead of Manuel Agosna, and it would be Fabrizio Fontana once again that took the win in the 488 Challenge Evos. Race statistics then. Total laps, 15. And total overtakes, there were 24 in the Coppa Shell race and 53 in the 488s. Goodness me. Best progress, von Skeltmar, and then it was Wittelsbach for our 488 drivers. So we're going to be heading up to the podium next. 2 podiums to come, one of course for Coppa Shell and one for the 488s. Michele Mabelli will be bringing the drivers out onto the podiums. Should be the Coppa Shell drivers that we will see first on the podium. Then it will be the 488 Challenge drivers, I believe. Here's Alexander Nussbaumer sprinting to step 3. Manuel Agosna to step 2 of the podium. And then on the top step of the podium, Henri Acide. He jumps and the national anthem plays out. Get to see Michele Mabelli, but you can see him there. He's the man in charge of the podium presentations, and trophies are about to be awarded right now as we welcome, of course, Castellet Racing onto the podium as representative of the winning team. As Lulu there making the trophy presentations. That is Ferrari factory driver Lulu Vadu, who is here making the trophy presentations. First of all to Alexander Nussbaumer, then to Manuel Agosna, and then of course the race winner's trophy to Henri Acide. Well done to Lou, and well done to our top 3 on the podium. And of course Castellet Racing will be in receipt of the Coppa Team's trophy as well.
Okay, and now guys,
all together on the top step of the podium for the photographs, if you will, please.
And raise your trophy.
And lift your, or rise your trophy or lift your trophy, whichever you deem appropriate. Big smiles. And as Nico has suggested, the podium is just to the left-hand side, so we're just going to do the windows up here. Make sure we don't get any of the champagne sprayed into our broadcast studio, as we can see a super slow-mo of the Castellet Racing driver Henri Acide, who took the win. Drivers' Championship, Henri Acide now a full 25 points ahead of John Dillon in P2. Manuel Agosna P3. Not absolutely sure those championship points are correct, because Manuel Agosna finished ahead of John Dillon. But there we are. Those are the championship points at the moment as we saw them. There's no questioning Henri Acide in terms of leading the Drivers' Championship, but I would just question the Drivers' Championship, given that going into this race. Here the 488 Evo Drivers' Championship with Fabrizio Fontana a full 54 points ahead of Tommy Lindroth. And then it's Pino Frascaro. And Nico, I know you've just been tapping away at the calculator there, and
I think those are the pre-race graphics, so we'll bring you the updated ones tomorrow. Don't worry about it. In any event, Henry Asid leads the championship, and in any event, there is another podium coming up, Dave.
Yes, here comes the 488 with Ivan David Mari, who will go to step 3 of the podium. Gabriele Bini then on the second step of the podium. And onto the top step once again. He knows his way there, doesn't need sat-nav to find his way to step 1 of the podium. Fabrizio Fontana. And there's his driver coach, Stefano Guy. Here come the trophy presentations then. Of course, the teams represented as well, of course. Lulu Wadu, then Ferrari factory driver, making the trophy presentations to our drivers of the 488 Challenge. And Fabrizio Fontana then on his way potentially to sealing the 488 Challenge Championship this weekend here in Le Castellet. That would be a remarkable feat, a remarkable achievement for the man that until starting in Mugello with the Ferrari Challenge at the beginning of this season, who receives the Pirelli Trophy right now from our Pirelli Motorsport manager there, Lucio Vigani. Yeah, Fabrizio, as I was saying, until the first race in Mugello at the beginning of this championship season, he had not raced a circuit car. He'd rallied, he had not been racing. So all drivers together then, complete with Lilu Vadu and our Pirelli Motorsport manager, Lucio Vigani. So super slow-mo of the race-winning car then from Fabrizio Fontana. There we have it then, the Coppa Shell and 488 Challenge race is done. Their race 1, another race to come from them in but a few moments, but another race to come from them tomorrow, but in a few moments it is our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli race 1. Make sure you join us for that. Thank you so much for watching. From Nico and from myself for now, bye-bye.